Hello there, and welcome to Empower Your Soul with Nicole. I today want to talk about the spirit versus the soul, and I will absolutely admit that this is probably my fourth time recording this because I ended up at a circle, and now I'm realizing I need to rebrand this podcast and say it's the soul versus the persona. But I think a lot of people think of it as the spirit, so I'm going to talk about that and what the difference is between your soul and your spirit / persona, because there's a really big difference between the two. And I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between the two. And it helps, I think, answer a lot of questions, especially from a religious perspective and a past life and an incarnation perspective, that I think puts a lot of puzzle pieces together. And I know when I first learned this with my spiritual team, they gave me an amazing analogy that I'm going to share today that is going to help you understand how all of these link together. I'll also talk about some of the implications I've been having lately about the spirit versus the soul and some of the conversations I've had with some of my amazing clients. So here we go. And thanks so much for being here. So when I talk about the spirit versus the soul, I'm actually going to rename that a little bit to, instead of spirit, I'm going to say persona. Your persona and your soul, because I think that's a much more accurate word for spirit versus the soul is persona versus the soul, because our soul is always one energy. Our soul is our higher self. It is who we are in the spirit world. You see why that would get complicated if we said spirit versus soul, because the soul is who we are in the spirit world. The soul is who we are as a piece of God, a piece of the universe, a piece of goddess. And it is essentially the one energy that we always come home to. It is our homeostasis. It is our natural state of being. Meanwhile, me talking into this microphone for this podcast, that is my persona. This is the person that I have chosen, that's a word, chosen to incarnate into and have this physical experience here on earth in. This is my persona right now in this lifetime. Who I am as a soul is different than who you are hearing talk over the microphone today. That's because our soul chooses to incarnate and have different lifetimes in different, I'm going to say planets, different universes, different timelines, so that we can promote the evolution of our soul. So our soul is just one being, but by having our incarnations, we're essentially making our soul more well-rounded. We're giving our soul many different experiences. We are giving it the opportunity to learn, to face challenges, to face struggles, so that we can incorporate that information back into our soul when we move back into the spirit world. And I feel like I need to pause, but I'm not going to. So essentially how my spiritual team explains this to me is that if you take a sunflower, and I think it's the best example of it, if you take a sunflower, the middle black where all the sunflower seeds are, all of those are our soul. So the middle of the flower is our soul. All of the petals of the flower, those are all our different lifetimes, all our different personas that we reincarnate into. And there's a lot of them. Like, many people have many, many, many different lifetimes. I mean, hundreds, thousands. And you're not better or worse if you're an old soul versus a new soul. It's not really a thing. But what you need to realize is that each of the personas, you essentially kind of move into that persona for a little while. And then when that lifetime is over, when you pass, your persona is incorporated, and the lessons of your persona is incorporated back into your soul. And it's part of this knowing, this knowledge that you gain to help you become an even better soul. Yes, all souls are perfect, but it doesn't mean that we don't have things to learn. So what I want to talk about then is, Spirit is asking me like 7 questions in my head right now. And I feel like these are questions that you're asking as you listen to this. So I'm just going to roll with it, because I just heard, but aren't souls perfect? Why would they need to evolve? They are perfect, but they still need to evolve and learn and grow, just like a child is perfect, but needs to learn and grow and go to school, right? It doesn't mean that we aren't perfect. It just means that our souls still need to experience things, because what the spirit world is essentially this wonderful unconditional love, um, where you have access to everything, but you still have to learn and apply that knowledge, right? You can't just learn and absorb everything and be the perfect being with unlimited intelligence and perfect at your skills the first time. That's not how this works anywhere. It doesn't work like that here. It doesn't work like it there. So what you need to do is incorporate all these different experiences into your soul's being, so that you can learn that true love and empathy from every single angle. And what that means is that you might come into a lifetime where you are, I'm going to say it, and I'm sorry to trigger it, but you might go into a lifetime where you're a rapist, right? And what you need to learn in that lifetime is essentially the feeling of dominating somebody in a horrible way and taking away their autonomy, so that you know what that feels like as the rapist. And then your next lifetime, you might come back and be the person that's raped and know what it feels like to be dominated and feel powerless, right? So it's just, I'm sorry if that triggers anybody, but that's an example of kind of this real life, quote unquote, karma that exists between the soul's journey, is that you need to learn and understand things from everybody's perspective so that you can have compassion for everybody. I'm sorry, it's true. I'm real. You might not like it, but this is the truth, right? This is the truth of our soul's journey, is that you need to understand it both from the perpetrator's perspective and the victim's perspective to fully understand the situation and come to a conclusion about how do I make this better? How do I fix this? How do I make sure I'm watching out for this? So then in your next lifetime, maybe you're the mom of somebody and you prevent a rape from happening because you've known and you've seen it from every single perspective, right? So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the soul and how we need to have different lifetimes and different lessons so that we see everything and we become a well-rounded soul here in the spirit world. That went way down the deep end. So that's question number 1. Let me see if they can refresh me with question number 2. Why do we forget our lifetimes then? And we forget our lifetimes when we go into incarnating, because what would be the point of remembering everything in the past? Because we are still, I'm going to say, we have energetic imprints from our past lives, especially if we've lived them here on Earth. So just got off the phone with a lovely woman this morning who's terrified of water, and we had a past life where she drowned as a fisherman, right? So so you'll have those past life imprints that are kind of handed down into the next life. But you typically want to not remember your past lives because you have a whole new lesson to learn, right? You don't want to live the same life. You don't want to learn the same lessons. So they're going to drop you right into your new life and not remember anything, because what would be the point of remembering it if you already knew the lessons that you were here to learn? Especially if you lived them in a past life and you weren't able to complete your life goal, your life mission, learn the lessons you're supposed to learn. I mean, wouldn't it be a great start for you to already know what your path is, but then your soul wouldn't go through that full journey of having to experience everything from start to finish, which is part of the learning process. So yeah, we are not meant to remember our past lives for the most part, even though as young children we tend to. And instead we're supposed to create this new every single time so that we can have free will and change our lives and make the decisions that and feel the consequences of those decisions. So again, we can become a more well-rounded soul and understand everyone's perspective, good or bad. When is it time to reincarnate? Really? We're going into all of these questions? Okay. So we tend to reincarnate or come back to Earth or wherever you're incarnating to when we feel like a soul needs to learn a lesson, when we want to progress our soul. Because I don't think that our soul is constantly learning, evolving, trying to become its best self. I think that we as a soul realize the value of rest and respite and spending time with our loved ones on the other side and having fun. And I don't think it's all work. I think it's a wonderful mix of work and play. And I think that's the freedom that we talk about when it comes to religion and talking about heaven, is that you get to do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to learn anything, you don't have to learn anything. If you don't want to reincarnate, you don't have to reincarnate. But for a lot of souls, forever is a long time to not learn anything, right? So we decide to either, and I feel like there's universities, kind of, so to speak, in the spirit world where you can go and actually learn things from books. And I think you can go to different places in the spirit world to learn things and learn how to like do physical things too. But ultimately, I think the fastest way to learn is to come here on earth or in a physical lifetime, because there's nothing like being completely disconnected from that unconditional love, that unlimited knowledge, that unlimited support, and learning your lesson that way. Because you can't learn the lessons we are learning here in a place of unconditional love, because who's going to be the bad guy in the spirit world, right? Everyone loves each other. So you almost have to learn certain lessons by coming here and becoming this persona of a bad person or a good person and experiencing what that feels like so that you know. And what's the whole point of all of it? What's the whole point of having multiple incarnations, multiple personas besides your soul's evolution? What's the whole point? And I'm hearing them ask me that in my head, and I'm hoping that they're going to give me the answer in my head as well. And I think it's just to experience love from every angle. And I think it's to experience joy and sadness from every angle. And I don't think any of these are good or any of these are bad, but I think it's just to experience and be and help people and learn what this, wow. And to become more godlike, right? More in the way of unconditional love, because I think a lot of us come from a place of not being happy all the time, right? Being kind of angry, being manipulative, being around, we all know, like, passive aggressive people and narcissist people, right? And I think that we all work to realize that this is the matrix, that this is all a facade here, and that our true homeostasis state is unconditional love, unconditional respect, positivity, like wanting the best for everybody. So I think you have to go through the muck to still have that soul alignment of love, even for somebody that does something bad for you. And I think that is the goal, is unconditional love for others and for yourself. And I think that's how I'm going to answer that one. And I don't think it's the right answer for everybody, but that is what I'm hearing is the right answer for me. We go through all these experiences to learn what unconditional love really means and bring us into true alignment with unconditional love in every sense of the word, because we might be given unconditional love in the spirit world, but we don't know what that means until you come here and you have abusive parents, right? We don't know what unconditional love is until someone does something horrible to us, and can we forgive them or not? Can we forgive ourselves or not? So yeah, I think it's a little bit of that trial here. How far can you move ahead on the unconditional love scale every time? That's my opinion. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm going to stick to. So yeah. So what's interesting, I'm going to move on from these heavy questions because I don't think I can answer another one of these because my brain just broke right there. So what I want to talk about next then is, I have had a lot of clients lately that are so high vibe that they see people at the soul level. And when I say I see somebody at the soul level, you see somebody and you know what their potential is. You can feel how big their energy is. You can feel how strong their soul is. You can see how strong, determined, loving, caring they are. And you can see essentially everything that's good in them. And you realize that everything that might be bad in them, quote unquote bad, or not the best thing about them, you realize that's a temporary thing that they're just having as this persona, and that's not really who they are. And you almost brush off that the sticky or the bad parts of their persona because you see them for who they are as a soul. You see their unlimited potential and you love them for that. And I'm going to be completely honest. This is probably my biggest flaw, is that I see everybody for their soul's potential. I see everybody at the soul level, and there's no judgment, and there's only love and wanting people to become their best selves. This is who I am. It's not always who I've been, just for the record, but it's who I am now. And what's interesting is that when you see people at the soul level, you miss them at the persona level. And what the persona level is, for those of you that see people, and I think most people do, most people see people at the persona level, which is who am I in this lifetime? Who am I day to day? Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Am I going to steal from you? Do I have these huge character flaws that drive you crazy? Am I a thief? Am I somebody who doesn't do good in school? Am I somebody who, I don't know, likes to stir up trouble? Am I a gossiper, right? And that's who people see in this lifetime. So when we're talking evidential mediumship, we connect to the persona. Like, our soul always has every persona available for us to access. So when we tap in evidential mediumship, we tap into the person's persona in that lifetime and pull that information through. It doesn't mean we don't have access to the soul or other past lives. It just means I'm just going to pull that persona through, and we're going to talk to that persona and get evidence from that persona. So I hope that answers your question. If you were wondering if you have a departed loved one that's reincarnated, it doesn't matter. Their soul is still there. You're still going to be able to talk to their soul and pull their persona through for that lifetime. So they're always there. Your loved ones are always there in the spirit world. So if you see somebody, bringing it back, reel it back, bringing somebody and seeing somebody at a persona level is, again, like seeing them for who they are in this lifetime. And I think that's where a lot of people have the distrust, don't really like people, get anxiety, don't want to go out, don't want to talk to people, hate small talk, that kind of thing, right? Excuse me. So, and I want to say, and I don't want to make this seem as black and white as I'm about to say it, because I don't think this is black and white, but I do think that this is where a lot of the ego can come in. And because we are constantly in this fight or flight state of survival mode, or ego mode, or needing to be better for survival, right? I like to call it my caveman brain. I don't even like using the word ego. It's like the caveman brain perspective of needing to, have food on the table, have relationships, be better than people, that kind of thing. I feel like that, to me, is where I tend to stay away from personally, is looking at the personas, which gets really tricky because I only looked at personas before. I would judge people from a mile away, and I'd be like, I'm not going to be friends. That person's crazy, right? No, total normal reaction, right? I don't want to be vulnerable because I know they're going to hurt me. And of course they are, because our personas are here to not be perfect people, and we're here to learn. So when you are looking at somebody at a soul level, you're discounting the lessons that they are here to learn. And you're discounting the journey that soul is on, and you don't know what that journey looks like. You might understand from a snapshot, a moment of time of who they are right now in this moment, or maybe you have a little history of where they've been or where they're going. But we don't have insight into what are their lessons they're learning this lifetime. Are they on track or are they off track? Is there something that I could do to help them learn their lessons, right? Versus if you're looking at someone at the persona level, it's the opposite. You don't see their potential. You don't see that they're good people. You come from a space of judgment. And I don't think looking at being here where we are right now in this physical world, being a soul that is having a physical experience, I don't think you can look at one or the other. I think you have to look at both. And I think you have to realize that who people are in this lifetime is not necessarily who they are as a soul. In fact, 99.9% of the times it's different. There's underlying similarities. There's core values that are generally the same across the two. But you're going to make very different choices and decisions based on the circumstances that you grew up in, and where you're growing up, and what religion are you in, right? Where were you raised, that kind of thing. So you need to understand that it's important to see somebody as a soul and not judge their journey, and not judge and see their potential. But you also need to know, where are they at today, and what can I do to help them in that journey, and understanding that these character flaws are not who they are. They're just a product of where they've been And it doesn't also mean that's where they're going to continue to go. So I guess, the Akashic records this morning in my client's reading, I think said it the best. And they said, you are in full alignment when you make space for both of these, for both the soul and the persona, and love them regardless of which journey they're currently in. So I guess that's what I'm going to challenge myself to do. Excuse me again. And that's what I'm going to challenge all of you to do is, for someone that you can't stand in your life, I'm going to do it. I'm challenging you. For if there's somebody that you can't stand in your life, realize that might not be who their soul is, right? Is this somebody that, I guess this challenge is going to be split up between people who see at the persona level versus people who see at the soul level. So for the persona people, where you have somebody in your life that drives you freaking crazy and you can't stand them, I would challenge you to sit with that energy for a little bit and be like, where are they strong? What are the positive traits? Who are they above the mess that they cause me every day? Is there something that you could learn from them, or something that you could walk away from? Every person that you encounter, it is not an accident. They are in your life for a reason. So learn what you need to learn from them and stop thinking about the defective person they are, and ask, what are you here to learn from them? What's the relationship there? Why are they here? And try to see them at a higher level from a space of non-judgment, and embrace I'm going to say the more positive qualities in them and what their potential could be, or where they could go. Doesn't mean they're not going to drive you freaking crazy, right? It's not going to change your perspective there, but I challenge you to see the bigger picture with them from a non-judgmental perspective. And then if you see people at the soul level quite a bit, I would challenge you to meet people where they're at. So you might have a friend that has crazy potential. I mean, like crazy, ridiculous potential. And they downplay it and they think they're not good enough, right? But you just show up and you keep reminding them how amazing they are. You're awesome. You're unstoppable. You can do all these things, right? And you constantly lift them up. But what you're doing is discounting where they are right now in that journey. They might have unlimited potential and you can feel what that is, but it doesn't make it easier to get to if they're not currently in that unlimited potential space. In fact, it's almost worse because now they know how good they could be and how far they are from it. Doesn't that hurt, right? And I'm guilty of this too, right? So try to meet them where they're at, and try to meet them at a level that is where they're at today, and asking and thinking more short term, like Spirit's showing me, like more short term, like hey, what are you trying to do this year? And like, it's not your job to get them to their unlimited potential, but how can you support them in the now to help them get to their potential, or wherever they're supposed to go in this lifetime? Because ultimately that's why we are all here. We are all here to learn lessons that our soul has set out to learn in this lifetime. And knowing what our soul is great, but we also need to take that and bring it to a practical level and figure out what are the lessons that we're here to learn and get that accomplished. Because let's be honest, this place is tough, and I'm sure nobody wants to reincarnate more here than we have to. Sorry, Mother Earth, you're beautiful, I love you, but it's a bitch here. So the faster that you go through and make space for people's both soul and their personas, and respect that each of those are actually part of who they are as a soul, as a person, and giving them space and unlimited love, unconditional love, for them to embrace their journey and make bad decisions and change their mind and learn on their journey. Because that's the whole point of why we're here. We are here to learn. We are not here to be perfect, and we are here to hopefully not have to come here again. We are here to learn our lessons. So I would challenge you to meet people in the middle and figure out how you can help them learn their lessons, or how can you show up in that space for them and be a supportive, loving person that helps them feel confident to move ahead in their journey. This one went way down the rabbit hole, and I just want to thank you all for listening if you're still here. There are so many amazing books and resources on kind of that journey of the soul, and that's actually specifically a book, and I'm not surprised literally those words came out of my mouth. But if you're interested in like what is the soul's journey looks like after reincarnation, or like in the spirit world, the journey of the soul is a great one, and it starts at you die and it goes to what does it look like till you reincarnate again. And that book is written by a hypnotherapist who is a PhD, and he just noticed over time his clients over and over again would say very similar things about what the experience was like after death between their lifetimes. So this is very evidential, it's very scientific, and I think that's what I love about my skeptic brain is I tend to read these things that are very skeptic, data-based driven, that allow me to see things from a whole new perspective with data that backs it up. Once a skeptic, always a skeptic. But it's really, really an interesting read. I would highly recommend you'd read it. Again, it's Journey of Souls. I don't remember who the author is. It's right there, though. I can see it on my shelf. I'm not going to go get it because I don't want to have to edit this out. But I just want to thank you again for being here. If you have any questions on the soul versus the spirit or the persona, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. There's probably a billion questions out there about this topic. But just know that you are, I'm gonna say it, and I know it's a Bible quote, but you are perfectly made. Like God made every single one of us perfect. And we are just moving through that perfection at imperfect rates with imperfect experiences and learnings, but we will all get there in due time. So I just wanted to thank all of you again for being here. I appreciate every single one of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.